For the past 18 months, our cameras have had exclusive access to the Metropolitan Police Paedophile Unit. We've seen officers going online, posing as teenage girls to flush out predators trying to groom children for sex. We've witnessed men from all walks of life being caught in these internet sting operations.
Right folks, want to go the other way please, thank you.
And discovered the full horror of their offending.
But fancy is not stepping out of your front door, turning up in London with 3 condoms in your pocket. Is it?
No, it isn't.
I'm Mark Williams-Thomas. For 12 years I worked as a police officer, specialising in child protection. But things have changed radically since then. Now I've been able to see firsthand how police today tackle the problem of internet predators. As my time with the Met continued, I was about to discover more about the other operations run by the Paedophile Unit and their links with other forces around the world that help them to catch a paedophile. These officers are at the sharp end of the battle to track down predators who want to groom children for sex. They're at the heart of the Metropolitan Police Paedophile Unit, the biggest unit of its kind in Britain and one of the biggest in the world. Its boss is Detective Chief Inspector Nick Stevens.
We are responsible for the arrests of hundreds of paedophiles each year. We rescue, safeguard dozens of children each year, but these children, not just in London, they are across the UK and they are across the world, because there are no boundaries when you're talking about tackling child abuse on the internet.
Since 2005, the unit has been running covert internet operations with officers posing as teenage girls online to flush out predatory paedophiles. One of the profiles they have created is of a 13-year-old girl called Becky. Predators think she's like any other young teenager, into pop music and fashion. But in reality, they're having online chats with this man. John Taylor is a covert internet investigator, or CII.
Talk me through, how does this grooming process work? I mean, what's the conversations that have?
Again, it can be, we have a thing in the office that how many questions will it be until they get round to sex. A lot of the first few abbreviations will be ASL, age, sex, location. So you'll confirm that I'm female, my name's Becky, I'm 13, I'm from London. What we will then do, the law enforcement side of our work is, well, what's your ASL? And a lot of the time they will tell us exactly where they are, their age. They may not give us their real name. The grooming will start then about your family life. Do you have a boyfriend? And then straight away it'll get into something like, have you had sex yet? Do you enjoy sex?
John told me how in one chat room he'd been contacted by someone calling himself Mike.
If I bring up the chat log, you can just see here, I tell him that I'll be 14 in July, and his response to that straight away is 13 years of age is a turn on.
On his profile he says he's married but looking. He says he works in sales management. Worryingly, he attaches a photo of himself naked. He lists his hobbies. They include open-minded women and girls. He says he's interested in kinky kids. After just one instant messaging conversation, he's told John, posing as a 13-year-old girl, that he wants to meet.
You come down the chat log and it talks about the meet just here. He starts talking about, where do you live? Is it London? Yeah. Where are you? He tells me I go to London on business. I tell him that I live in an area of London, and then he comes straight out. This is on the first chat. It's the first Yahoo Messenger chat, and there it is. I could meet you there if you wanted. Now suddenly we've gone through. We've got all these images that he has sent quite happily to a 13, 14-year-old girl. His profile is of a naked male. He has sent me a picture of himself naked. Talks about sex, would like to have sex with this 13-year-old girl, and on the first Yahoo Messenger it's about, I can meet you in London if you wanted.
I mean, just picking up on some of those, the text there. If I strip for you, will you show me your breasts? Do you think you would just watch, or do you want to touch? I mean, that's incredible. Here we have a 41-year-old man who is clearly open about what he wants to do to a 13, 14-year-old girl.
Yeah, it offers to all units. This man is a good likeness to our subject.
Almost 3 months after receiving that first message from the man calling himself Mike, a meeting has been arranged. He expects to meet 13-year-old Becky. Instead, he will be confronted by Detective Inspector Dave Manning and his team.
We've had officers in Bedfordshire at his home address. He's been seen to leave this morning and he's been driving a blue Audi A6. He said in one of the messages to our child that he would look out for the big blue car.
What do you know about him?
He's a married man. Not sure much else about him. He has no criminal record. So that's all we know at the moment. We're not sure exactly what he does for a living. We think he's some sort of he travels as part of his job. It certainly appears that way. But until we actually get to deal with him, then we won't know for sure.
I know it's difficult to guess, but what would you expect his reaction to be?
Well, it is difficult to guess, and different people, the reactions vary really. Almost always total shock, because he will realise that his world is probably going to collapse around him. His job, his family. But he is a predatory paedophile. He's travelling to London from Cambridgeshire, thinking he's going to have sex with a 13-year-old girl.
Internet predator Mike Baker thinks he's about to meet an underage girl for sex. Little does he know what awaits him. On a wet Tuesday morning in South London, detectives from the Metropolitan Police Paedophile Unit are in position, ready to make an arrest. A man calling himself Mike has arranged to meet what he thinks is a 13-year-old girl after grooming her online. DI Dave Manning gets in position near the street where the meeting is due to take place. Mike isn't due to turn up for another 25 minutes, but one of Dave's team has spotted a man who he thinks is a suspect.
He's on foot, he's constantly on the phone and wandering about. He's got on a 3/4 length black jacket. He's got a cream shirt on and a brown tie, and he's got sort of beigey brown, sort of fawn coloured trousers, and he's quite smartly dressed.
That was the description that was given to us this morning.
Will you received?
Yeah, it's all received, Caroline.
In the event that there are 2 or more officers in a position to stop him, please do so. Yeah, he's just by the bus on the near side now.
On the bus.
Dave's team move in for an arrest. This is Mike Baker, a middle-aged businessman who expected to meet a 13-year-old girl for sex.
Come this way, Mr. Baker. Okay, climb in the back.
Sit this side, please. No, sit this side.
I follow officers as they take him to Charing Cross Police Station.
Sarge, we're in receipt of intelligence to suggest that this gentleman has travelled down to London today for the purposes of meeting a 13-year-old child with the intention of engaging in sexual activity with her following sexual grooming. Part of the
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear perfectly well.
Okay. Every person brought into the police station is searched, okay? So an officer now is going to search you, okay? Right, just get your jacket off for me, please.
Detectives have found what appear to be Viagra tablets and condoms in his pockets.
2 green tablets.
After Baker is checked in, detectives begin questioning him about his conversations with Becky.
Did you say, if I strip for you, will you show me your breasts?
I have no comment.
On the 15th of May, you said, strictly speaking, you're underage, but you're very sexy. Did you say that?
No comment.
Is this the first time, and have we caught you and nipped this in the bud?
I will answer that question and say that it certainly is the first time. And other than that, I've got no further comment to make on that.
Have you ever attempted to meet another child and it's not gone through?
No, I have no comment to make on that.
So this is the first person that you've interacted with in these terms, is it?
To reiterate my point, this is the first person that I've tried to meet.
Right. So is it fair to say that you may have had, for want of a better word, some sexy chat with perhaps other underage girls?
So I've got no comment to make to that.
But that this is the time that you've actually crossed the line and travelled down to meet them?
I think I've said what I wanted to say in that respect. And I've got no further comment to make on that.
I know there's no one reason why offenders want to abuse children. I decided to get the opinion of Donald Finlater, who has worked with paedophiles for more than 20 years.
There's a lot said that if you're an offender, you've been a victim of sexual abuse. What's your experience of that?
Rather, a lot of people who have offended have, yes, been sexually abused as children. Not all of them, and of course the majority of people who are sexually abused do not go on to become sex offenders. So it's not the only explanation, but for some it's a contributory factor to them becoming a sex offender. Many of them have been exposed to domestic violence, parental alcoholism, maybe kind of neglect of various kinds. So there's damaging things happened to most sex offenders when they were children that together have kind of formed them into the people that have gone on to harm in their future lives. But that can never be an excuse. We can feel sad that those realities happen to them. Part of treatment is about facing them and actually not being held back by those damaging experiences.
They've just got the approach now to the roundabout, very close by. Someone relay that?
The first time we contacted. Meanwhile, I received a call from DI Dave Manning. He asked me to join him on an arrest, this time in West London.
We're on our way to arrest a gentleman by the name of Robert Purcell, who is currently en route, we believe, to Hammersmith to meet what he believes is a 13-year-old girl, Becky.
Yes, this is in the direction of this location.
In May, on 28th of May this year, he contacted Becky again, said he'd like to meet her, he'd like to take her virginity. And yesterday he's contacted us again and said he'd like to meet today if that was possible.
Parcell's online chats with Becky were explicit from the beginning. In a series of online chats in the months that follow, Parcell keeps the conversation sexual. As the day of the meeting draws near, it's clear Parcell is aware of the risks he's taking. Three months after Parcell first approached Becky online, Dave Manning and his team are in place ready to arrest him. He's convinced Parcell is a real danger to children.
He believes he's coming here to go with a 13-year-old girl back to her house and have sex with her. That's quite clear. That's what he intends to do, and that's what he expects to happen. So, you know, it's important that we arrest these people as quickly as we can, because you know, if we don't arrest him today, who's he going to talk to on the internet tonight? Who's going to talk to over the weekend? Who else is he going to try and groom? He may well have other people that he's planning on meeting tomorrow, for all we know.
Officers are in position and ready to arrest Parcell.
He's parking in Charing Cross Hospital.
Okay.
Passing. Okay.
The meeting is just minutes away.
They're just on the approach now to the roundabout, very close by, and the subject is in front of a silver Vivaro van.
Yeah, Alan, that's all received by DR Manning.
One of the team calls with an update. The suspect is almost at the meeting place. The information is relayed to 2 officers nearby.
He's coming up to the roundabout now. He's in front of a silver Vauxhall Vivaro van. He's just approaching the roundabout now.
Subject has gone straight down, straight Caroline Street.
Any minute now. Don't pull up, don't come out yet, don't come out yet. Put the camera down, he's not going left, put the camera down.
Parcell has driven straight past us.
Thank you, we got him,
Just slowly, just ask everyone, just go slowly.
We can see his black Nissan Sunny in our wing mirror, being boxed in by the police's silver people carrier.
Okay, let's go.
Hello, mate, police officers. What's up? Police officers, put your phone down. Don't listen to what this woman's going to say to you.
Come out the car. Put your hands up. What's your name, please?
Robert Parcell.
Robert Parcell. My name's DC Fleury. I'm from the Metropolitan Police Paedophile Unit. Why are you here today, please, Robert?
I'm not.
Why have you come to the street today?
To see someone.
Who you come to see?
Girl.
Okay. Robert, because of that, I'm arresting you now for attempting to meet a child following sexual grooming. And in reply to that, you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned, something which you later on in court. Anything you do say will be given in evidence, do you understand?
Okay. Let's go.
This is Robert Parcell, a security worker who travelled to London from Sussex on a Friday afternoon, hoping to meet a 13-year-old girl for sex.
Child locks.
No, I turned it back off.
I follow officers to Charing Cross Police Station to see Parcell waiting to be booked in.
Just wait here a second, Robert.
He looks a forlorn figure.
Paedophile unit. I know one officer's found you up there. Yeah. Just let you know downstairs.
Later, back in the office, I wanted to find out what he had to say during interview.
Nick, bring me up to speed on Robert Parcell. What happened in the interview?
Parcell was interviewed. He admitted that, yes, he had been the individual who'd been communicating with us. Yes, he travelled thinking he was coming to meet, he said, a teenager. And he put the defence up that he travelled to meet in order to warn the child not to meet strangers on the internet, which obviously beggars belief a little bit, but that's what he chose to speak to us about in interview.
He's saying in interview, I was meeting her, I was going to warn her, you know, almost like a moral crusader. I mean, is this a defence that they use? Seems to me to be ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the two main defences I think would be fair to say is that one, I was turning up to warn her against strangers and meeting people on the internet, and secondly, that I never believed she was under 16 years of age. This is why it's so important for our investigators to make it very clear, both on the profile and during conversation, hey look, you are talking to an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old child.
But as a painstaking work of strengthening the case against Parcell continued, I heard about the success of a separate operation involving members of the team.
The British paedophile, nicknamed the Librarian, who collected 250,000 child abuse images, was sent to jail indefinitely today. Philip Thompson was part of an international paedophile ring that reached into 33 countries.
Undercover officers from the unit succeeded in infiltrating an international paedophile ring. And as a result, this man, Philip Thompson has been convicted.
One of the cases you dealt with is Philip Thompson, and that started with your team, didn't it?
Yeah, Philip Thompson was basically a member of an international network, a leader of an international network who controlled a number of websites, forums, which the only reason you would go onto that website or join that network was if you had a sexual interest in children. We deployed undercover officers onto that website, and over a number of months we were able to infiltrate that website. Did that very, very successfully, so much so we became very, very trusted by the moderators of the site, by Philip Thompson. That enabled us to identify everybody who was a member of that site, all the key members of the network, and it wasn't just in relation to people looking at images or sharing images. The higher end of the network were engaged in hands-on abuse themselves and were sharing images of children that they were abusing.
Thompson was jailed indefinitely. More than 50 other arrests were made as a result of the same operation. In November 2007, as part of a separate job, police launched Operation Edgemead. Covert officers took over the email account of a convicted paedophile. They wanted to find out what other paedophiles they could meet on the internet. Dave Manning told me more.
How successful is it when your undercover officers go online and pose as offenders?
Oh, highly successful. We've had a number of investigations of this type. Operation Edgemead, we've arrested a significant number of people. About 12 people have been arrested as a result of Operation Edgemead, and dozens of others have been disseminated to other forces. That's just the sort of people in and around London. Dozens more have been disseminated to other forces for them to deal with.
The covert officers told paedophiles who contacted them on the web that they had a 12-year-old daughter called Katie, who they would allow to be abused. One of the men who contacted them was Simon Foster.
He started interacting with us last year, very early on, was very sexually explicit about what he wanted to do to our daughter Katie. That developed, and eventually we deployed an undercover officer as the paedophile, and Simon Foster met that person and they had a long conversation which was explicit, very graphic around the sexual acts he wanted to perform on his daughter.
Now, what type of things, I appreciate it's very graphic, some of it, what types of things did he want to do? What was he talking about?
They had long conversations about Katie was a virgin, he wanted to take her virginity. He described various sexual acts he wanted to perform on her, including oral sex and other, really quite graphic and disgusting sort of conversations that he was having with him.
But what kind of man would even discuss abusing a child in such a horrendous way? I was about to discover for myself when I joined Dave Manning as he headed out of London to arrest Simon Foster. On a cold, wet morning, this predator is about to discover the man he met 4 months ago to discuss abusing a little girl wasn't another paedophile, but an undercover officer. It's early morning and DI Dave Manning and his team are on their way to arrest a man who's been speaking to what he thinks is another paedophile online. He's even had a meeting with an undercover officer and told him he wants to abuse a 12-year-old girl called Katie. But Katie doesn't exist, and Simon Foster is about to discover he's at the centre of a police sting operation.
Police officer.
Hello, Mr. Foster.
Yeah.
I'm Detective Constable from Scotland Yard. I need to come and talk to you.
Why there? No, got me down.
I was shocked to discover that the man who wanted to abuse 12-year-old Katie was in fact a married family man.
Today what we've seen is what we see on many of our jobs, is the total devastation that this kind of activity causes to, it's not just about the person that's been arrested, and clearly we're here to protect children, but the fallout for the people arrested and their immediate families is absolutely immense. Nobody enjoys going into someone's house and delivering this kind of news to them. But we have to bear in mind that in the long term, we are protecting children, and I think that always has to be at the forefront of our mind, and we just have to get over these issues.
Dave's team take away 6 computers, various DVDs and mobile phone equipment. Finally, after 4 hours, Foster is led out. Later that day, Foster was interviewed by a female detective. He admitted wanting to abuse 12-year-old Katie and spoke openly about his meeting with the undercover officer he knew as Graham.
So what drove you to actually go and meet Graham, though? I mean, at that stage, were you considering it as a genuine possibility?
I suppose I must have been, yes. But whether I was thinking, well, obviously I wasn't thinking clearly, I was being led by my libido or whatever. Yes, I suppose to a degree I must have been thinking that it was a possibility of something happening. If I'd had the spare time or the opportunity, who knows?
Simon Foster later admitted attempting to arrange the commission of a child sex offence. He also admitted making and distributing indecent images of children. He was sentenced to 21 months in jail and will be on the sex offenders register indefinitely. Part of the work of detectives dealing with paedophiles revolves around suicide prevention, putting offenders in touch with support organisations following their arrest. But I wonder what impact working on these cases has on the officers themselves.
I mean, it's difficult. I think 2 things have struck me since I've come to this unit, and obviously I was aware of the existence of paedophiles, but I had no idea that there were so many, and that they, some of the levels of depravity are just really quite shocking, very, very shocking indeed. About 6 weeks ago, I saw a clip of a paedophile movie, if you like, indecent. It was the rape of a small baby, and it really, I felt sick, absolutely physically sick about it. And I think some people, anyone else looking at that would view it in exactly the same way. They're absolutely horrific images at times that we have to deal with.
How do you deal with that? How do you personally deal with seeing horrible pictures of children who are being abused?
I don't know is the answer, really. I don't know how I do. I think that this type of work, I think if you couldn't deal with it, you'd very, very quickly realise that and would say, look, I'm not, I don't think I can deal with this, and that has happened in the past, Both myself and the detective sergeants will, monitor the officers. They receive regular psychological assessment to make sure that the work isn't sort of having an adverse impact upon them.
Certainly something that struck me in making this programme is the sheer scale and size of the problem. Do you think that you and your team can do more?
Yes, I think we could. If I was given twice the number of officers, I could do twice the amount of work. There's no shortage of work out there at all, believe me.
For Dave Manning and his team, another way of tracking down offenders is to follow the money. The credit cards used by paedophiles to download indecent images of children. Back in the unit, detectives had discovered a database with the details of thousands of people who'd accessed sites selling images. Meiosis, as it's called, is one of the unit's biggest ever operations. DS Nick Duffield asked me to meet him in West London before dawn, as he prepared to arrest a man called Grant Chivers. His credit card details had been found on the database.
It seems Mr. Chivers is on a night shift, or was on a night shift last night. He's due back at 8 o'clock in about an hour's time. We are executing the search warrant at the moment. There is property to recover, and then we will obviously make arrangements either to arrest Mr. Chivers on his return, or we'll arrange for him to come into the police station.
Finally, an hour later, Chivers returns home. I learn Nick Duffield has seized a laptop and computer disks during his search. Minutes later, I watch as Chivers is taken away for further questioning. But I wanted to learn more about this sickening trade in indecent images of children. Head of the unit, Nick Stevens, and his boss, Detective Superintendent Sue Knight, invited me to join them on a trip to Interpol headquarters in Lyon, France. They had come to update Criminal Intelligence Officer Mick Moran on the arrests made as a result of Operation Meiosis.
So far to date, Mick, within the London area, we've arrested 70 people. In the UK, it's over 300 people at the present time. Had some really significant results. Certainly one result in the Midlands. The offender was arrested and led to the identification of 14 children who had been raped, and that individual has now been convicted of 14 rapes of children.
That's a staggering
and the issue
fact,
for me,
really.
the offender was very young himself, under 25, and how long would it be before any of those children would have come forward, or how many more children would he have abused before he'd have come to notice?
My God, 14 children. That's a massive capture, and it just goes to show what this is all about. That Operation Meiosis is not just lines of text or people looking at pictures. This is about, you know, abusing children at the end of the day. That's what the images are, and that's what these guys are after.
With the help of the Met, Interpol are on the trail of a criminal gang behind the websites. A gang earning millions from men prepared to pay around £60 a time to access sickening images of children being abused.
In 14 months, you have 65,000 people in the world willing to pay organised criminals for access to this sort of material. That's madness. You know, it really is scary.
What I find really scary, and I'm sure many members of the public would find scary, is that we think of organised crime being around drugs, being around money laundering. But what you're saying is actually organised crime now is very much involved in the manufacture, the making of indecent images, and ultimately the abuse of children.
That's right. And this is an example of that. An example of how they are getting involved, and they are seeing the children as a product. They are seeing the child abuse imagery as a product. And the great thing about the Meiosis job is that it plugs in to the other investigations, and it plugs in with the excellent evidence that was gathered as part of Meiosis, and it allows other countries to action a little bit better this organised crime gang.
My trip to Interpol had impressed on me how vulnerable children now are to organised crime gangs around the world. I learned Operation Meiosis arrests are likely to continue for months, if not years. Meanwhile, back in London, the covert internet operations are ongoing.
Paedophiles are prepared to take their time to wait to achieve their objectives.
DS Nick Duffield asked me to join him. A man was travelling to London from his home in Essex to meet what he thought was a 14-year-old girl.
The situation this morning is that man Ian Price has been communicating with what he believes to be a 14-year-old girl since May this year. The interaction's been extremely sexual, and on a number of occasions he's asked this girl to come and meet him for sex. A day's been fixed today, pre-arranged location to meet, and he expects to meet the girl and take her back to his house for sex.
In early conversations with what he thought was a 14-year-old girl, Price asks if he can be her boyfriend. Just days later, in another online conversation, he insists she's not too young to be his girlfriend. Three weeks after first chatting to Shelley online, Price is keen to meet. As the meeting draws near, he asks Shelley to send him a picture of herself topless.
Okay, mate. Thanks. Bye.
What's the update?
Price has been communicating with us, telling us how excited he is about meeting us this morning, how much he's looking forward to it. We've managed to establish that what he's wearing this morning, he's wearing a black shirt and grey jogging bottoms, white trainers, and he's also confirmed that he is en route to the pre-arranged location and that he'll be on time to meet us at around 10:15. We are aware that this individual's got previous convictions for violence, so all the officers have been briefed appropriately in relation to that. Beyond that, we'll deal with whatever situation arises.
Soon we arrive at the tube station where Price is expecting to meet Shelley. Members of Nick Duffield's undercover team are already in place. Price is expected to arrive in a matter of minutes. In the morning, and Nick Duffield and his undercover team from the Metropolitan Police Paedophile Unit are in position at a London tube station. Concerned about Ian Price's previous conviction for assault, Nick asks us to hang back.
Which one? Grab him for us when you see him. Yeah.
Minutes later, a man fitting Price's description is spotted coming up the escalator.
That's how to come over here. That's how to come over here. Listen, DC Bartle from the Paedophile Unit.
What have I done?
Okay. What's your name?
Ian.
Ian what?
Price.
Lovely.
Ian, what are you here for?
To come down see somebody.
Okay, right.
And whatever's in his hand.
Rather than the 14-year-old girl he'd been planning to take home for sex, he is met by officers from the Paedophile Unit.
I'm arresting you for travelling to meet a child following sexual grooming, inciting a child to commit sexual acts, and causing a child to view sexual acts.
Do that. Yeah. Just turn towards me.
DS Nick Duffield carries out an initial body search, checking for any evidence.
A packet of chewing gum. One lighter. A watch.
Price is later booked in at Charing Cross Police Station as members of Nick Duffield's team head to his home to seize his computers.
And the tube map's in there as well. Okay, come this way.
A short while later, Price is interviewed by Detective Constable Caroline Bartle.
And on that day, did you say, so you thought any more about being my girl then, Shelley?
She challenges him on the conversations he'd had online with what he thought was a 14-year-old girl.
And do you like to be held and touched and caressed and played with?
No comment.
On the same day, did you say, I wish we could be together right now, babe? Would love to have you in my arms, holding you tight, caressing you and kissing you passionately.
No comment.
And do you like being kissed around your neck and ears? And it's okay, babe, don't worry, I understand. I like that you're a virgin, sweetheart. I could show you and teach you things in bed if you want me to.
No comment.
That's what you wanted to do with her, isn't it? Did you say, I really do love you so very much, Shelley? You're my everything, my one true love. What are you doing by trying to do by saying stuff like that to her? Trying to make her feel good? Grooming her? Can you see that? Is that a photograph of your penis? Did you send it to Shelley?
Later, I catch up with Nick Duffield's colleague, Jason Tunn, who is now overseeing the case.
Jason, Ian Price was at court this morning. What's the latest?
The court have considered in all the circumstances to grant him bail, which obviously we're quite disappointed in. But there have been conditions that have been placed upon him. The conditions are that he has a curfew overnight, that he's not allowed to take or have any access to the internet.
And how do you police that? How do you make sure he doesn't have access to the internet, for example?
Well, it's very difficult. We take people's computers away, but as everyone knows, there's internet cafes all over the place. Virtually everybody in the country, I would suggest, has access to a computer, either personally through a friend or through an internet cafe. It's a very difficult thing for us to police, to be honest.
Months later, I was to discover confiscating Ian Price's computer wasn't enough to stop his offending.
No, we don't. We're separate.
While he was waiting for his case to go to court, 47-year-old Price had a real 14-year-old girl in his sights. He had pretended to be a 21-year-old man and begun texting and phoning her, trying to groom her for sex. The girl, who we'll call Sarah, agreed to speak to me.
What type of things would he say in the text?
That he'd fell in love with me, that he wanted me to meet him. One of them was he wanted me to go round there once I'd got drunk with my friends, and he was like just telling me he loved me and that I had a really nice voice.
But after a month, the conversations turned sexual.
He was laying in a hotel room screaming my name and stuff like that, and I was on the other end of the phone, and I just sat there and I tried not to listen, and it was just like in my ear, and I wanted to get off the phone and I couldn't. I was too scared, so I carried on listening to what he was doing, and he was like, I'll play with yourself and I'll get you a toy if you want, and I was like, no, you're alright, thanks. And we finished that conversation, and the next day he texted me, and in the mornings it'd be like, oh, I'm sitting here waiting for you. I was talking to him in the morning about 7 o'clock when I was on my way to school or leaving mine. We were texting all through the day. I was talking to him when I got home from school, before I went to bed. It was just like he was doing it step by step, and it was all where he's reeling me in. Like I was on the end of a fishing line, and he was gradually pulling me in step by step.
Sarah finally plucked up the courage to tell her parents about Price. They contacted the police. At court, Price had admitted the offences relating to the police sting operation, but denied the offence relating to Sarah. It meant she had to give evidence. Finally, a jury found him guilty of inciting a child to engage in sexual activity. Jobless Price was jailed indefinitely and won't be eligible for parole for 2 years. He will remain on the sex offenders register indefinitely. Meanwhile, I learned that the other offenders featured in tonight's programme were also given jail sentences. Remember Mike Baker, the married man who posted a photo of himself naked on the internet? He admitted attempting to meet a child following sexual grooming. Baker was given an 18-month prison sentence and will be on the sex offenders register for 10 years. Baker is now divorced. Grant Chivers, the man whose credit card details appeared on the Operation Meiosis database, pleaded guilty to possessing and making indecent images of children. He was sentenced to 15 months imprisonment and will be on the sex offenders register for 10 years. Meanwhile, I learned one of the other paedophiles featured in tonight's programme had walked free from court. Robert Parcell, the man who wanted to take a 13-year-old girl's virginity, admitted attempting to meet a child following sexual grooming and inciting a child to engage in sexual activity. The judge gave him a 12-month prison sentence, but it was suspended on the condition he completes a sex offenders treatment program. Parcell will be on the sex offenders register for 10 years. Whilst most child abuse happens at the hands of family or friends, I believe the dangers posed by paedophiles on the net cannot be underestimated. The Paedophile Unit have charged or cautioned more than 300 predators since their covert internet operations began in 2005. Most of the offenders have no previous convictions. How long might they have enjoyed the anonymity of the internet and put real children at risk were it not for this pioneering police work? And that's what's at the heart of the sting operations, saving real children from predators. The success of these operations means they're now being rolled out to other forces, not just in Britain but around the world. But one thing is clear to me, it's down to us as parents to do all we can to keep our children safe. These paedophiles were put behind bars, but how many more men like them are waiting to speak to our children the next time they go online?